about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. Well, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So today is my Stoney's birthday. Oh, my little baby fishy tushy. Stoney turns 25. I know I'm aging myself, but yeah, I gave birth to him 25 years ago. We almost lost him. My monitor was not working, and I woke up to being in a 13-minute contraction, was trying to call the nurses, and thank God they came in, but he was basically asphyxiating. Heart rate was going down. We almost lost him. And somebody was not paying attention, but thank God those who were finally paying attention ran in, helped save him. And my baby is with me today, still 25 years old, my big boy, Stoney. Hey, little fishy, tushy. We call him fishy because he used to swim around my tummy. Right? He's a little fishy. So, I mean, amniotic fluid in the uterus, but to everybody, it's my tummy. But I've been very, very blessed having a very close relationship with my boys. Now, it could be because I never saw them growing up. And so I didn't discipline them, whip them, give them the belt. Any time I had with them, it was all about hugs and kisses and love and support because I was always working. And I wish I was with them there for them more, and I've apologized to them. Although I bet they're thinking to themselves, but that's actually why I'm not screwed up, Mom. The less of you, the better. So it was all good. But I hope my boys will never lose this closeness with me. I'm close with them. I love them. And the reason why it's one of my biggest fears in life is because I see other people in my family. I see patients. I see friends of mine where their kids don't talk to them. Their kids don't respect them. Their kids hate them. And I was always fearful that I would have a child who would end up hating me. And maybe that's why I bent over backwards to spoil them. And I didn't want to spoil them. I wanted to prepare them for real life. But I just wanted to always give them support, but also be honest and real with them. And I established a relationship where I'm not going to lie to you. Okay, what you did was stupid. It was stupid. Don't do stupid. I mean, you have to still be a parent. But what you don't want to do are some of the things that sadly have happened in life where you break up the family or you hurt somebody that they love, like their father or their mother or their sibling, or you beat them or you abandon them. And so there are a lot of children out there that may justifiably dislike you and not want you in their life. There are parents that just want to use and abuse their children. There have been, and these children need to get away from that toxicity. But if you weren't one of those individuals that hurt them, stole from them, beat them, hurt their family members, but you've lost somehow their respect, or things have gone a different way, don't let that go. It blows my mind how you have kids who hold on to you and can't wait, mommy, daddy, clutch on to you for dear life. They're your little babies. And then they go through the teenager years like, okay, boomer, or really, oh God, mom's calling. Oh man, I don't want to talk to her. What, mom? And then, you're like, with the help of God, I gave you life and you don't love me anymore. Yeah. And you don't want to do the guilt thing. You don't want to, over smother them. But these kids go from needing you to, being little parasites in your womb to not wanting anything to do with you. And so as a parent, that's it's very lonely and it's very frustrating. So what do you do? Well, like I said, if you weren't a piece of crap, where you deserve the estrangement and they need to be away from you for their own health, but it's just things just fell apart or they lost respect for you, etc. Own up to your mistakes. Have a conversation with them, and say, look, I want to mend our relationship. We're adults now. I understand I wasn't the perfect parent. And I understand people fight. And sometimes the people you're closest to are the people you can repel the most. And I want to work on our relationship. It might not happen overnight. It might not happen in one phone call or one visit, but baby steps. And I understand we only have one life to live and time is short. But if you try to do too much too fast and they hate you, it's not going to work. But owning up to your mistakes, if there was something you did, let's say you did beat them, and say, look, that was wrong. That's how I was punished as a child. I thought that was the only way. I didn't know how to parent. And that was a huge mistake. I should have never done that to you. The pain I caused you. And I don't know how I could ever make that up, but I want to. I want to spend every day of my life making that up to you. That's a good start. I know some of you are like, oh, that's really sappy. Well, no. Parents will do things to hurt their kids. I've seen it happen. And I've seen families completely destroyed. And I've had family members say, I need to be away from that toxicity. And I get that. But there are aspects to a relationship that could also be mended. You might not get the, I love you, mommy, I love you, daddy, I want to cuddle from your adult child anymore. But maybe you will get a phone call on your birthday. Maybe you will get an invite to see the grandkids. Maybe you will get an invite to Thanksgiving, or let's go and meet for lunch. So if you have to mend a relationship with a child, figure out what it was that was and I understand people are like, well, I don't want to admit all the guilt. Explain that. Explain, look, nothing justifies this, but you need to know the context. And I wish it never happened. But I want you to understand what I was going through. You're a parent, and I also don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. But, and so have these conversations. Now, they might not want to listen. There's a lot of adults out there that are like, you know what, it's easier for me not to have you in my life, so I don't want you. But for those people who need support, let them know, look, I want to support you, and I want to make up for lost things. And we could take it as slow as you need. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, YouTube, click like and subscribe. And if you ever miss a show, go to drdaliah.com. So we have had a child die of measles, something we haven't seen in decades. But sadly, it happened in West Texas. There's a current outbreak going on. The child was not vaccinated against measles, from what we're being told by Lubbock's health department. And we don't have too much details on the child, but what we do know is there have been 18 hospitalizations, according to the Texas Department of State Health Services, of this Lubbock outbreak that has infected 124 people, mostly children. Now, a Dr. Laura Johnson, who's a pediatrician and chief medical officer at Covenant Children's Hospital in Lubbock, said her team has cared for at least 20 kids with measles so far. So she said all of those kids were admitted because they were having trouble breathing. None of them had been vaccinated against measles. So the outbreak has been limited to parts of Texas bordering New Mexico. That part of Texas. Texas is huge. They say the state in New Mexico has also reported 9 measles cases. We are unsure if those cases are connected or not. So this is the first measles death to be reported in the United States in a child since 2000, actually in a person since 2015, but a woman died back in 2015 in Washington. Health officials say she was exposed at a clinic in a rural part of the state. So measles was considered relatively eliminated by the year 2000 because of the MMR vaccine. I remember in the 2000s when they were talking about that, and they were saying it was virtually or it was nearly. They were very hesitant on saying that we have completely eliminated it. And I remember in medical circles, we were like, okay, there might be some one-offs, but overall, we've done pretty well because of the vaccine protocol. Apparently, 2 shots of the MMR, which are the measles, mumps, and rubella, are 97% effective in preventing the disease. What this case tells us is measles is not always benign. It can have the power to kill. However, we have a lot of distrust as it pertains to vaccines. And this is something that we do need RFK Jr. to help navigate the country through, as parents are starting to reject vaccines more and more. They don't trust the government. They don't feel that the side effects are being transparently addressed or transparently discussed, and for parents to be able to access and educate themselves on. They also feel that pharmaceutical companies have a lot to gain, and our vaccine protocol is a way for these pharmaceutical companies to gain more money. But the biggest concern that parents are telling me they have with the vaccines is that there's so many. And they have said, look, if you said I just had to give my child 1 or 2, I could do that. But we are giving them vaccines and 2, 4, 6 months, year, 4 years, booster at age 12, and we're giving multiple. And these parents are feeling overwhelmed. And what's going to be very, very difficult for any doctor or public health official is how do you scale those back? If parents are like, I don't want 6 shots going into my 2-month-old, which one do you cut? Now, many parents say, well, chickenpox. Chickenpox rarely killed. Why are we vaccinating for chickenpox? So the reason why we have a vaccine for chickenpox is chickenpox would make kids absolutely miserable. It would cause parents to lose work. The whole family would get sick. And if somebody was older when they got the chickenpox, it was serious. A good friend of mine had to be hospitalized because it was going up and down his esophagus because he was a teenager at the time or a young adult. And then it comes back as shingles, and shingles could cause blindness, hearing loss, long-term neuralgia. So when health officials got together saying, we could vaccinate for this, they're like, well, that's a good one. Okay, well, then what about hepatitis? Well, hepatitis can kill. It can cause cancer. cause liver tumors, cause liver failure. Okay, so we need that one. Well, what about polio? Well, a polio can kill. Look at all the iron lungs kids had to be put on. You said goodnight to your child. They had a little bit of a cold. They'd wake up paralyzed the next day. So we want the polio vaccine. What about tetanus? Why do we have to do the tetanus shot every 10 years? I had a family member die of tetanus before vaccines were out. That's also a bad one. So the problem is if somebody asked RFK Jr., which ones do we not need? It's not an easy question because there's an argument for all of them. For public health officials to decide, well, we need to vaccinate, there had to have been numbers and severe illnesses that resulted from not vaccinating. But we keep getting more and more illnesses coming our way. So are we going to be giving kids 100 vaccines later? What do we do? And people always say, but look, if we eradicate the disease, we don't have to. Well, none of these are officially eradicated. I never thought measles was eradicated. I knew it could come back. Polio can still come back. So if we're eradicating something, now smallpox, we haven't had to vaccinate for smallpox until recently with the Mpox outbreak. Because we didn't have an Mpox or monkeypox vaccine, we used smallpox. And that helped protect individuals. See, we have the data and the science that the majority of these vaccines will prevent the disease. What consumers, though, want is it worth the risks? What are the risks? What are we doing to our body if we're doing too many? There's a case we're going to be talking about later where a woman has had major bony destruction from her COVID vaccine, she and her doctors believe, where she's needed multiple surgeries. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And so parents are looking at this going, I hear doctors go, why aren't these kids vaccinated? Well, do we know this child in Texas bordering New Mexico? Were they an American child? Were they a migrant? Were they a gotaway that came across the border? And so they haven't had a chance to be vetted or their vaccines updated? Do we know any of the status of this? We're being told the child was unvaccinated. Was it by parent choice? Were there religious exemptions? Was a family member gravely ill from a vaccine? Did that child have a contraindication to the vaccine? See, they like to lump anybody who's anti-vaccine as crazy. But having a good friend of mine, he's a very liberal Democrat who got Guillain-Barré from a vaccine. He didn't choose to vaccinate him or his family because he almost died. So, it's a conversation that has to happen. And we have to be very embracing of people's opinions on this. Because we know vaccines work. But we have a lot of hesitancy and reluctancy because there's a lot of distrust. And people feel that there are too many vaccines. And we're going to keep getting more. As we spoke about with the avian flu, farmers need help because these chickens are dying or getting killed or cold because of the H5N1. So they are touting that the best way to manage the avian flu is to vaccinate everybody's flock. But humans might not want to eat vaccinated chicken. Look at how people rejected the COVID vaccine. Well, it shouldn't have been forced on people. And I know nobody tied us down, but when you were told you're going to lose your job or you're going to get kicked out of the military or you wouldn't be able to get surgery or you wouldn't be able to go to school, yeah, people felt forced. So everything is in moderation. The best way to move forward with things is in moderation. And I know a lot of doctors disagree with me. They say, get the shot, get the shot, get the shot. Just vaccinate. Don't let anybody think twice about it because then they won't do it. And I understand herd immunity. If everybody gets vaccinated, you protect those who can't get vaccinated. But I told you that wouldn't be the case with COVID, that you would never reach herd immunity with COVID because people vaccinated could still turn around and cough on the little herd that's not vaccinated and still spread the disease. So we need to get our acts together. We need to be on the same page. And we need to quit insulting people if they are questioning some of the evolving science. That's what we do. That's how things work. And it blows my mind how doctors are mixed on this, because you can't pass medical school without understanding that what we learned in the 80s or 90s or 2000s might be different in 2015 and 2025. And you have people that will still, call it non-A, non-B hepatitis. It's called hepatitis. It's not, we don't call it non-A, non-B hepatitis anymore. That was 1990 vernacular. Get with the times. 1-877 Dr. Daliah. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we have a little bit of breaking news. Many of you might have already heard that it looks like we are getting closer and closer to the end of the Russia-Ukraine war, as the U.S. and Ukraine have now been able to merge on this mineral deal. Ukraine says they have agreed to the terms of a preliminary deal that would give the U.S. access to its deposits of rare earth minerals. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he hoped the initial agreement with the U.S. will lead to further deals, but confirmed no American security guarantees have been agreed yet. According to BBC, U.S. President Donald Trump said a deal would help American taxpayers get their money back for aid sent to Ukraine throughout the war and give Kyiv the right to fight on against Russia. So we don't have a lot of key details, but Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said Ukraine and the U.S. have finalized a version of the agreement. And the preliminary agreement sets up an investment fund for Ukraine's reconstruction. Kyiv and Washington would manage the fund on equal terms, according to the Prime Minister. Ukraine will contribute 50% of future proceeds from state-owned mineral resources, oil, and gas to the fund, and the fund will then invest in projects in Ukraine itself. Zelensky has acknowledged the fund and told BBC that it was too early to talk about money. So the U.S. would own the maximum amount of the fund allowed under U.S. law, but not all of it. So there was a disagreement under this, and I remember people were kind of talking, going, wait a second here, Ukraine's dealing with war, and now all of a sudden we're dealing with rare earth, and Trump is asking for that. Well, so Trump has to justify any spending we're doing. And so rather than it just be blanket, and this was difficult. When Putin invaded Ukraine, there was a lot of support for us helping Ukraine. But as I said early on, we're going to have to maybe deal with this a little differently than what looks like we're going to do, because we could be in a multi-year war that we are funding and funding and funding, and there might be no end to sight. And we may just have to cut the head off at the snake, or cut the snake off at the head. And as predicted, and many people predicted this, here we are years later. I think we are now in year 3. February 24th was the invasion date by Putin. Here, Ukraine still needs money, still needs weapons. And sadly, the war still rages on. And this could go on for decades. So Trump doesn't want to leave Ukraine alone. and let them just fall to Russia. But he also doesn't want it to be a running faucet. So how do we have some skin in the game? How do we look like we have a vested interest in Ukraine and also a reason to help them? This minerals deal. So Trump said the U.S. had given Ukraine $300 billion and $350 billion in aid. And he wanted to get that money back through a deal. Now, other individuals have said, no, we gave less than that, but still, we've given billions. So how do we move forward? How do you get a Congress? How do you get an American? Because the one concern I have is America is starting to become more and more isolationist. On one respect, we might have to be, because we have to fix ourselves. We need to get the wall up. We need to get our homeless people off the street. We need to help our veterans that are, struggling. We need to strengthen our military. We need to take care of our hospital infrastructure. And we have some of the most unhealthiest people on the planet. So we need to make America healthy again, strong again, etc. On the other end, though, if we just become completely isolationist, then China could take over, Putin could take over, and America does need to be involved, as you see with the Hamas hostages. We need the hostages coming home. And Israel can do, part of the work, but America had to step in and say, hell's going to break loose if you don't release them. So more have been released, sadly. Bodies are still coming back. But anybody who's alive, we need to get out of Gaza immediately. So for America to be, okay, do we want to rebuild Gaza? Do we want, there has to look like that there's something in it for America. And so that's where we are with this. And, it might not be a bad idea. Now, Trump has finally been able to meet with his cabinet. This was his first cabinet meeting. There was some breaking news that happened today, and Elon Musk was there. But what made the headlines was Trump does not want there to be discord among the department heads and the cabinet members and Elon Musk. And discord started, and we knew Trump was going to have to come in and provide some leadership with this because of all the email fiasco with federal workers. Elon Musk wants all the workers to submit 5 talking points and things they did, which makes sense. On the flip side, how do you do that without violating national security? They said, don't send anything classified. Don't attach anything classified. Just tell us what you did. Well, let's say somebody works for ICE. And they said, well, last week I was in San Antonio and I was working with local agencies for a future operation. Well, there you go. He was, I guess there's going to be a raid or an operation. You see, it's not something that the Pentagon wanted people doing. So how do you please Elon Musk, but also protect the sanctity of the department? So President Trump, during his first cabinet meeting, said Musk is tremendously successful. And when I guess a member of the press asked about how some members are displeased with Musk's power and Doge's work, Trump disputed it. He said, let the cabinet speak for a second. Anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, we'll throw them out of here. Anybody unhappy? Now, what he should have done was not necessarily say throw them out of here. Just say, is anybody unhappy? Talk about it now. But instead, it was before they could even say, we'll throw you out of here. So that was Trump's way of saying he doesn't want to hear it. If you don't, Elon's here to stay for now. Although Doge is supposed to expire July 4th. I think Doge is done by July 4th. So any cuts Elon thinks needs to be made. Now, I'm sure Trump could extend that. But Elon Musk has other businesses, has other things he needs to do and oversee. So he's not with the Trump administration the whole time. But the cabinet members like Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio and Pam Bondi, they were all like, nope, no problem here. So Trump has kind of made his feelings known and he's actually supported Elon Musk with this email that got sent out by the Office of Personnel Management. We understand that he has deputized Elon Musk to save taxpayers' money, and he thinks Elon Musk is doing a good job. And for the most part, he is. It's a little bit chaotic right now in federal agencies. And looking at layoffs, and what do? Do you send an email? Can somebody hack it and access it and then pick up that something classified could be going on? That needs a little bit more clarity. And I don't think that email is the best way with 2 million responses to figure out who needs to get fired. I think the departments need to get to work. And if the department is not headed by somebody who's doing the work right, they get fired. Meta is incentivizing. Meta is doing a lot of layoffs, but they are incentivizing their department heads so that they do their job. And they want to make sure that those leaders, if they're good workers, are going to stay and are going to implement these cost-cutting measures. They may hire new people that are better in production or more productive or not. But right now we are in the age of productivity. And so all the lackadaisical remote working, sleeping in, playing solitaire, texting on the job, those days are starting to be in the past. And I agree with that. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So some of you might have seen this headline of a young mother who has undergone multiple surgeries to replace bones and joints that has been linked to her getting the COVID vaccine. Daily Mail is reporting that Brittany Burnett, 34 years old, was working at a nursing home in Tennessee when the pandemic hit in 2020. Nurses at the time were living in garages or trying not to bring the illness home, Remember that one doctor lived in a tent in the garage so he wouldn't give the virus to his family? Well, she was afraid that she was going to get infected, miss her son's birthday, bring the virus home. So when the vaccine came out, she got the vaccine. She got the Pfizer vaccine in January 2021. She had no side effects in the beginning. But then, about 5 months later, she started to get unbearable pain in both her hips. She was told she had arthritis at the young age of 31 and had to use a wheelchair when the pain made it too hard to walk. Now, some of you could say, Dr. Daliah, she was going to develop it anyway. Really? 5 months after the shot? You go from, my hips hurt. I've, hurt my knee skiing and, hurt my hip. But really multiple joints that quickly, needing a wheelchair? Something triggered. Something, and even if it wasn't the vaccine, but this was a very abrupt onset of arthritis. A doctor ordered an MRI, which revealed that her hip bones were literally rotting. So maybe she had something like hip dysplasia, where we see this in dogs and we see this in humans, where the hips the bones start to thin and they start to break and they can't function and hold the strength that they need. So by December 2021, 11 months after her first vaccine, she had to get a hip replacement. A few months later, she had to get a second hip replacement. But the hips weren't the only joints affected. Over the next 4 years, and still ongoing, she needed surgeries in her shoulders, knees, 3 in her elbow, 1 in her foot, and apparently next week she's having another surgery in her right foot. So a year after her ordeal began, one of her doctors attributed this to possibly her having COVID or the vaccines. So Miss Burnett told Daily Mail that the pain is so debilitating. I have never felt so helpless in my entire life. I've always been trying to be the best provider I could, be caring for other people. But she had to quit her job as a nurse and director of the elder care home. She had to go on disability. She can't even drive her kids to school, and she's only 34. She says, I have really had to mourn the life that I thought I was going to have because I will no longer be able to be the same person I've always wanted to be because of a virus and a vaccine. It's destroyed my life. And so I've had to just totally sit back and reevaluate everything. Now, she is not the first person to say that she's had issues. In fact, there was a study coming out of Yale that we spoke about last week that said there might be something called a post-vaccination syndrome, where people are reporting brain fog, dizziness, tinnitus ringing in the ears, exercise intolerance. And they think maybe what happens is it reawakens our Epstein-Barr virus, the virus that causes mono. Can cause flu-like symptoms, swollen lymph nodes, nerve issues. Even though her issues don't really necessarily sound like Epstein-Barr, this is a destruction of bones. Did it activate her parathyroid hormone and cause bone leaching? What happened? Did her immune system start to fight her? What happened here? So I don't think we know, but it's being reported that there wasn't much different that she was exposed to except the virus and getting vaccinated. Now, I walked you guys through this since the beginning. I didn't know what to think about COVID. And part of that was because China was not being very transparent. And because I was seeing in November of 2019, people not testing positive for flu, but getting very sick. And us seeing a huge uptick in pneumonia and people's lungs filling up with fluid. So by the time end of December, January came around, we started to learn, okay, well, this is what it is. It's a SARS coronavirus. But then we were told all this BS. Well, somebody ate bat soup and it came from frozen food in Italy and all sorts of other BS was coming out of China. And it was scary. And my colleagues in hospitals are like, this is bad. And in fact, one of my doctor friends who's, is really, about First Amendment and people's rights, et cetera, said, look, Daliah, I'm worried about you. Be careful. You're out and about and because I wanted to calm people down. I knew this could be scary, and I wanted people to be smart, and I wore my mask when I had to wear my mask, of course. But I also wanted to help local business. I also wanted to help my students. I also wanted to be there for patients. So I didn't lock down. I was out and about, and thank God I didn't get COVID until it was, I think, the Delta strain, and it kicked my butt, but thank God I didn't need to go to the hospital. I did end up getting the vaccines. I was reluctant, but I did it because, if I was going to be around people, I still see some patients doing disability exams for the state. And I'm like, look, if it does protect them, if it does minimize this, and if it protects family members I'm around, and I'm close to another family where I was with their 90-year-old mother a lot, I'm like, I'll do it. And I don't regret getting the vaccine because at the time I saw a lot of death and destruction from COVID. But I did regret what public health officials did in terms of the mandate. Biden promised he wouldn't do a show me your papers or mandate it, and he did. And a lot of people who wouldn't have gotten it ended up getting it. And that, do I think it saved lives overall? I do. The more destructive version of it. Do I think it could still save lives? Yes. For those people who are at risk of severe COVID, because I do think getting COVID can really mess with the body. And I do think COVID can wreak havoc, even could be oncogenic, meaning cancer causing later on down the line. I didn't want the virus in me. So I don't trust the virus. But the way we handled the vaccine and then said, sorry, you need 2 shots. Oh, you need boosters. You're going to need boosters every 3 to 5 months. It took a turn that it shouldn't have. And so with Miss Burnett, they think the vaccine prompted an immune response that ended up sending clots that cut off the blood supply to her bones called avascular necrosis. That's what they think happened to her. And avascular necrosis could happen with chronic steroid use, could happen with a vaccine, could happen with a virus. But this isn't going to be the first time we hear of somebody who feels they got vaccine complications. What's going to make this very tricky is anytime somebody reports a vaccine side effect, the experts and the public officials need to ensure this wasn't something else. Was it a virus that did it? Was it a medication they took? Was it another illness? So I think the cause and effect is going to be easy to study if everybody has the same reaction. But we are hearing that this post-vaccination syndrome is widely varied. Some people will get brain fog. Some of the people have memory loss. I've noticed my memory is different. Is that because I had COVID or because of the vaccine? How do you prove it? So we will be able to eventually prove it, coming up with biomarkers. But at this point now, we're still guessing. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.